up and sit down.
Welcome to the Health and Wealth Podcast with your hosts, Tim and Carter.
What's trending, Enrichers? Carter Wilcoxon, founder of CSI Financial Group here, with my co-host and former wealth advisor, Tim James, founder of
ChemicalFreeBody.com and your new health advisor. This is the show where we reveal the connection between physical and financial abundance.
Hey, welcome back, Enrichers. Thank you so much again for joining us for another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast Show. And as always is the case, luckily, I'm very lucky when it comes to this, I am joined by my fantastic co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body himself, Tim James. Tim James, how are you, my man?
Doing good, brother. It's official. I'm in Eastern Oregon, back home on the farm, like literally. And now there's just more work to do.
now it's starting to get
for those that never, if you've grown up on a farm, you know it's just never ending. It just never ends, which is fine because you got to get up and move and do things, right?
And hey, I'm really excited. I cannot wait to go ahead and bring in our guest today. I know I'm going to chop up his last name, but you did a really good job pronouncing his last name. But Michael Golosovker.
Almost.
But Michael, it's already difficult enough, in this world that we're living in. I don't need any more challenges than trying to figure out how to say, your last name and, the amazing job that you do as a certified financial planner. We're really excited because that is another challenge that you can help to solve for your clients. And we're excited to hear your story. So thank you for joining us today.
Awesome. Well, let's hear how do you pronounce your damn name?
My last Golosovker.
Golosovker.
There you go.
So this is like Russian heritage, right?
Yes, it is. The trick is to pronouncing it is to forget you're a grown up, pretend you're 4 years old, and sound it out. Because people want to add syllables and they want to add letters to it, and it's just got to pretend like you're a kid. And that's the trick.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Once you got that, it's like maybe that's the reason I pronounced it so right, because I'm like a 4-year-old kid.
There you go. But if it works, I appreciate it.
Hey, whatever works.
Well,
it's the man behind the name. It's easy to do. Like, there's probably some names over here that are probably hard to pronounce for Russians that are American names. It's just different. It's just different. And then you just different languages are a little bit different. So anyway, cool stuff. We're glad to have you on, brother.
Yeah, glad to be here. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, hey, our Enrichers, and again, Enrichers, thank you for joining us for another episode. They really like to get started with understanding, your journey and your path towards, becoming a CFP, a certified financial planner, and getting into the industry of helping people with their, with their finances, with their retirement, taxes, all that good fun stuff that you do. So let's go back and share with them what brought you into this industry. I mean, everybody always has a fairly unique story, and maybe you give us sort of your heritage. We talked about, Israeli born, Russian parents and everything. Talk a little bit about how you got started even here in America, how you got here to start with.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So many years ago, my folks were from the then Soviet Union, and they wanted out. It was not a great place to be, and so they took them about 3 years, I think it was, to get permission, and they finally got out around 1976. And we're Jewish. Israel is a handy place to go and live if you're Jewish, and so they made it out to there. And about 4 years later, that's where I was born. And it's remarkable. My brother was, I think, a month old when they moved, and so they got there. And then, I don't have any accent. It's because about 2 years after that, that's when we came to America. And so, Russian parents and born in Israel, but really grew up in America, grew up in New England, and various different bits of it.
Do you speak Russian?
I used to. I've forgotten most of it. I want to relearn it. It's on my sort of infinite to-do list is to relearn it. And I can understand it better than I can speak it. And it's mostly convincing my relatives that I can't speak it. That's the biggest challenge, because they'll do like rapid fire Russian at me sometimes. I'm like, I picked up some of that, but I don't know what you're saying. And they always say to me, yeah, you do. So, but yeah, so I kind of grew up around here. I'm in New Hampshire right now. So, but yeah, then, sort of grew up normal suburban life, I guess. And, went to college in Boston, and then went to law school right after that. And so I did Northeastern University School of Law, and graduated and actually practiced law for about 5 years. Problem was that I graduated in 2008. And so graduate in the late spring, you study for the bar for a couple of months. I took 2 simultaneous bar exams, New York and Massachusetts.
Wow.
Find out that you pass them. You don't find out until November. And then you get sworn in and enter the workforce. Late 2008 is notable for being a really, really bad time to enter the workforce, as the recession slammed into us, right?
Yep.
So what ended up happening is that for the next 5 years, I kind of piecemealed together a living, but it was really project-based work, doing incredibly boring work. I did document review for large-scale corporate litigation, which, as boring as that sounds, is even more boring to do. It's whatever you're picturing is way more interesting. I promise you, it's the worst. So, and that leads, of course, to why I ended up changing careers. So that was about 9 years ago. I got recruited. Actually, I got a call. Said, hey, you want to come change careers? And I didn't know anything about financial services at the time, but what I was doing was terrible. And so I was willing to at least have the conversation. And several interviews and meetings, and decided to make the switch. And me and my wife talked about it, decided to give it a year, see how it felt. Did it for a year, and we're like, yeah, nope, this is what I want to do. And so I've been doing it ever since.
Wow. So going back, growing up, you grew up in the Northeast.
Yep.
Your entire life, right? You don't know anything different than the Northeast, basically, as far as, because you were born in Israel, but you were 2 when you moved. Is that right?
Yep. Yeah. So this is really what I know and where I'm from.
Gotcha. So you move here with your parents, who were from the former Soviet Union.
Yep.
Somehow they end up in Israel, and then it's just you and your brother.
Yeah. Just the one older brother.
And then, so did you, as you were like going through, law school and, maybe even high school or prep school or whatever, did you ever think to yourself, I kind of have this, this interest in numbers or, financial planning, anything like that gave you some sort of indication that was intriguing to you, or something at least interesting?
No indication about financial planning per se, but numbers, yes. I've always, our dad used to, from a very young age, our dad used to give us like weird math problems to solve, so you do a pattern, figure out, hey, what's the next number in the sequence. So I remember, I think I was 5, he gave me this Fibonacci sequence to figure out, which as a grown-up is not that tough. As a 5-year-old is not that easy. And stuff like that. So numbers I've always sort of been good with and I've always liked. And statistics was always kind of interesting. Maybe not the grunt work of statistics, but the concepts behind it. So there was that stuff, but there was never I should be a financial planner. Actually, growing up, I either wanted to be an actor or a lawyer. And so I ended up doing a lot of school plays and stuff, and then became a lawyer. It was just, but it did turn out that financial planning has a lot of very similar, I guess, mindsets or ways to think about things that financial planners and lawyers have that in common. So that was really useful. And of course, legal knowledge has been really useful. Has it been useful to the tune of law school tuition in debt. I don't know, but it definitely it helped. And so they're not really that far apart in like under the hood, you know. So it's been, but no, I don't think anybody could have really. I mean, I don't think almost anyone gets into financial planning as an intentional thing, or anybody ever says, "Oh, you should grow up and be a financial planner." Like it's just not on the menu.
Yep.
So.
Yeah, but obviously, so you've been doing this now for about 8 years. Is that right?
9 in total. Yeah.
Okay. But obviously with the whole numbers thing and being able to piece things together, right? The application of like what you're talking about with, with law and, contracts and, planning and strategizing things of that nature. There's a lot of application between those two things. So it sounds like, being an attorney or a lawyer, was that early on? You said actor or lawyer. Was it more acting first and then lawyer second, or was it being a lawyer first and then acting second?
Oh, like in terms of ambition, I mean, yeah. I guess I don't know that I was ever serious about becoming an actor. Otherwise, I would have probably gone and done it for real, right? So what ended up happening is I went to college. So lawyer was a thing that people said I would be good at, and it was always intriguing. I went to college for criminal justice, and then I went to law school. And really, actually, I was thinking about becoming an FBI agent, And so I went into law school for that, or to be a prosecutor was the other kind of idea. And then I fell in love with other kinds of law. It ended up happening. Plus, having to make a living, and so it was definitely, being an actor was a hobby and fun. Being a lawyer or something in the legal realm was the more serious ambition. And then I eventually chucked them both and did this. So.
Gotcha. So you were more of a thespian growing up than more on the. Interestingly enough, a lot of the advisors that come on here, they were athletes. They played sports growing up, and then that's what their pattern was, and then they end up getting into something about like teamwork and something about being around those types of people got them into the financial services business. But you were more on the thespian side of things, and I'm assuming took drama class, and you probably did that early on, right? 6th grade, all the way through.
Yeah, I think my first play was also around 5 or 6 years old, and just all the way for my entire childhood and up until maybe early adulthood. Was that, but I mean, I was a bookish nerd, right? And so it was really the, reading, the constant reading. Oh yeah, nobody is surprised that he then went and got a law degree path, and acting was, I guess, a passionate hobby, but not anything that was really going to be a living. But yeah, I was the, the geek guy as opposed to sports. For the most part.
Yeah. So did you end up meeting your wife in like high school? Was it in college? Was it, you met her at the law firm that you worked at? So tell us a little bit about, how you guys got together.
It was even more coincidental than that. I had friends down in Virginia, and I went to visit them. And so I had these 2 friends, they were roommates. And then one of them had a girlfriend that was also their roommate. So it was the 3 of them. And my wife was that woman. So that we met because she was a girlfriend of a friend of mine. And that's how we sort of met and, became casual friends. Sometime later, they broke up, nothing to do with me. And then.
Wasn't your fault.
It was, right. And so it was after that we, were talking more and more, and eventually, fell in love. So. She's from New Hampshire, actually, and had gone down to Virginia for college, and then stayed down there, and then eventually moved back up to New Hampshire, and that's when we really got together.
So you guys just casually stayed in contact with one another, is what you're saying?
Yep. Yeah. So it was a pure, perfect serendipity.
Nice. Awesome. So I see now in Richards, as you're probably listening to this and maybe not watching it, I see that you got a picture of one of your children. I don't know if you have more than one, but I see the one, and obviously you got the drawings that they're making. So you've got some young, at least one young child anyway, right?
Yeah, my daughter Everly, she's almost 6, so just the one. She is my primary decorator. Just gonna have a whole wall of her art, and there's actually more that you can't see. So, yeah. So, best thing I ever did. She's being a dad is magical. So.
Yeah, well, there's honestly nothing like being a parent. I mean, Tim, you and I, we talk about, our kids on a regular basis, and I've got a friend of mine that is getting ready to be a dad for the first time. I get all geeked out and excited whenever I have a buddy of mine getting ready to be a dad for the first time. Because I'm like, oh my goodness, you have no idea what it's going to be like, and it's so amazing. And you tell them these things that you probably heard yourself from people whenever you were going to be a dad for the first time. Like enjoy the sleepless nights, enjoy all this, because you're going to miss it whenever it's gone. And of course, your daughter, almost 6, right? It's a different phase than whenever they were, toddlers, and now they're infants, and then, now they're going into school and all those things. It really is amazing.
Absolutely. I do want to say, so I always joke when somebody's going to be an expecting parent for the first time, there's, 5 pieces of advice and 4 jokes that you just hear over and over and over again, which is always funnier to me when it's from people who don't have kids. And you're just like, yes, I also have watched television and have Google, but there's this one piece of advice that I always give. And I just want to, real quick, because I wish somebody had told me this. This is the one thing, the atypical thing, which is that stage when you have a baby where you're holding them in that like cradle position, right? Before they're sitting up over your shoulder a little bit. That cradle position is really short period of time. And so you do that as much as possible, because 5-6 months in and it's gone. Yeah. And nobody told me that I would not be holding her like this for very long. So just that in particular. But everything else people have probably told you, right, 600 million times.
Yeah, that's actually great advice. And then Richards, if you, I guess this goes for grandbabies now, right? At least you learned it. So eventually you become a grandparent, you're like, I'm going to cradle this child as much as I can, because you're exactly right. It is such a limited amount of time that you have to be able to do that.
Yeah, it's so fast. And it's such a precious way to hold a baby. And you're just, all parts of it are amazing. It's just that part it's gone. Right.
Yeah. Appreciating that. And it's interesting because that's also, I'm remembering back whenever my kids were young. They're, teenagers and grown up and stuff like that now. But I'm sitting here thinking to myself, it was also the most peaceful time that we had with them as well, right? Because they're completely dependent upon you. They're not trying to, in most instances, squirm away or whatever. They're literally just willfully just laying there. They're not yelling. They're not screaming, right? That's typical when you're trying to pat them on the back and calm them down. It's, they haven't started any type of teething or anything like that. It's just the most peaceful time. And it is 2 to 5 months. And that's what you got, and it's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to carry her like that a lot. I would do the thing where I'd have to walk her up and down the hallway sometimes to help her go to sleep. Right. And it's dark and it's quiet and it's magical. It really is. So now I'm just remembering. It's so good. Anyway.
Yeah. For me now, when people say they're having a baby or something, I get all freaked out because I'm worried about all the, what are they going to feed the baby? Are they going to breastfeed the baby for at least that prerequisite 2 years? Are they going to get a C-section? If so, they need to know there's, it's all these things. Cause I've learned so many of the pitfalls from working with doulas and, just being in this industry so much. It's you want to take that little precious child and make sure that their immune system and everything's dialed in. So anyway, maybe we'll get to that in the third segment, but great first segment, guys. I think we'll take a quick break, and we get back. We'll get into more of what Michael's up to over there, helping his clients out in the financial world. We'll be right back.
Estate planning. What does that even mean? When the inevitable happens for everyone on this planet, your estate plan kicks into action. But first, let's start with what an estate is. An estate is simply everything you own. Now, here's the issue and what needs to be understood when this event occurs. You only have two choices on this plan. Number one, either you plan how your estate gets handed out and distributed to those you leave behind. Or number two, your state decides who gets everything you own. For the first time ever, you can now take complete and total control of this plan that you've been deprived of for most of your life and generations before you. You can get personalized assistance along the way with a team of specialists whose job it is to make sure you have true peace of mind. It's important to understand that estate planning is a journey, and rest assured that our team will be available to you all along the way and at every step. Welcome to eState Plan, home of the last estate plan you'll ever need. To learn more, make sure to reach out to your local advisor licensed with us or go to our website for more information.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here, back with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon for another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast Show. Today in the house we've got Michael Golosovker.
Yeah.
And he's wearing a blue shirt, which is pretty standard for financial advisors. We have to put on blue shirts every once in a while. So, Michael, what's going on over there, man? What do you got going on that's so awesome and special? And obviously, clients are attracted to you. They're referring their friends and family and coworkers. What's your secret sauce over there, brother?
All right, let's see.
Yeah, and before we get started, I know that we had this conversation whenever, pre-show and everything. I know that there's this boring part, and most of our enrichers are other advisors, so they can appreciate this. I know you have to read like some sort of disclosure just in case for some crazy reason there might be some, assumed advice. I don't know, but I know it's just part of the compliance part of your world.
Yeah,
so,
disclose away if you need to.
Yeah, whatever you got to do, and then we'll get into why your clients love working.
I appreciate it. Yeah. All right. So brace yourself. Disclaimers are coming, right? All right. I am a registered representative and offer securities products and services through NILAF Securities LLC, member of FINRA, SIPC, a licensed insurance agency, and a wholly owned subsidiary of New York Life Insurance Company. In this regard, this communication is strictly intended for individuals residing in the states of, and I'm licensed in a billion states, so I apologize, Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Florida, Georgia, Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan, Montana, North Carolina, New Hampshire, New Jersey, New York, Ohio, Oklahoma, Rhode Island, Virginia, Vermont, Texas, Wisconsin. No offers may be made or accepted from any resident outside those specific states referenced. I am also a financial advisor with Eagle Strategies LLC, a registered investment advisor, and a wholly owned subsidiary of New York Life Insurance Company, offering advisory services in those same states. And I think one last one. I'm an agent of and licensed to sell insurance through New York Life Insurance Company, and may be licensed with various other independent, unaffiliated insurance companies in the states of all of those same other states. Can't do insurance business outside of them. California insurance license number 0152973. Champion Financial Strategies and Insurance Solutions, which is my actual firm name, is not owned or operated by New York Life Insurance Company or its affiliates. Whew. All right.
Before you get into this, guys, and Carter, I have to bring something up because I remember all of the amount of red tape in the financial services industry. Now, if for those listening, if you're not an advisor, I think you understand now. It's stupid because everything he just said, probably doesn't mean anything to you, and anything he just said is not going to change whether you want to do business with him or not. It's ridiculous the amount of red tape and it's like everything has to be run through the review board. It's just even sending out birthday cards. I mean, it's just weird. It's just weird. There's so much regulation, and this is why everything's such a freaking mess in the world today, is because we have all this red tape, regulations. People just need to be able to go do what they need to do. So anyway, that was me ranting about it, but that was a ridiculously long and really boring disclaimer. So thank you, Michael. You made it fun though with your acting skills. They were shining. So
I appreciate it.
All right, take it away, guys.
All right. So where were we?
So let's talk about the real reason why your clients work with you is not because of your disclosures and your disclaimer.
No.
They work with you because you're a real person, and so are they. So let's talk a little bit about the makeup of your practice and everything. And you're coming up on a decade. Congratulations. Getting past the first 5 years is an accomplishment.
Oh, wait.
In and of itself. So
That's a little applause. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So so fire away. Let's talk about what you're doing over there at your company name, right? Champion Financial Strategies and Insurance Solutions.
That's right. Yeah. So it's something. It's a branding layer I created, right? So speaking of my last name and all that, at some point I realized that my last name is not going to be good for web browsing and searching and marketing or anything, right? Somebody could desperately want to work for me. They're never going to find me because they're going to misspell it when they search for it, right? So that's Champion Financial Strategies and Insurance Solutions. And even the name there, by the way, is somewhat regulated. Came from realizing that. But yeah, are you sort of asking like who I work with or why or?
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about your normal day-to-day operations. Obviously, and maybe we can talk about just like over the last 2 years on how much your practice has changed on how you work with your clients.
Gotcha. I mean, it's definitely for the last 2 years, it's definitely changed a lot. So in terms of normal day-to-day, right? I'm a big fan of time blocking, which I can't imagine has not come up a billion times. But I very sort of wake up. I do all of my morning routine. I am anal retentive, pretty to an extreme degree, I think. So I have checklists for everything, all the time. I have morning checklist and the the midday check. I have checklist. Kind of a crazy person that way. So I do that. I did realize I hate doing scut work later on in the day. So if there's paperwork that needs to be done and all the boring stuff of running a practice, that's all in the morning. I deal with all my email in the morning. I do all the things in the morning. I don't even do meetings in the morning. Because if once it hits noon, if there's a piece of paper you need me to fill out, it's not going to happen no matter what. So I just do all that. And then afternoons are for client meetings. And then Fridays are marketing days. And Saturdays are like a office catch up, random other stuff day. But I think the heart of it ultimately in the last couple of years, I've really been doing a lot more actual planning and financial planning and paid for financial planning, fee-based financial planning. And that's been just amazing, as well as becoming a bigger part of the sort of financial planner community, zeitgeist, whatever you want to call it, right? Listening to a lot more podcasts, reading a lot more pieces, like just being kind of a part of the greater whole instead of being quite so siloed as I used to be. And it's just been incredible because you just find out there's all these things that you never learn or hear about. No matter who you are, no matter how you got into the business, there's going to be a bunch of stuff you've just never heard about. And it's really from other planners and advisors that I suddenly found out about them, and that's just been really helpful in, I don't know, a billion different ways. So,
yeah, well, so let me tap into that a little bit, if you don't mind. Is it maybe something that, to your point, you discovered, you're like, wow, that's something I never would have imagined or whatever. I mean, maybe it was some like sort of tax strategy or something that like, because you're constantly trying to find things, I'm assuming, to help your clientele, right? That's why you're looking to learn these different techniques, strategies, whatever it is that, you didn't know.
Right.
You knew it, right? Is there something that like comes to mind that you were thinking about as you were talking about that?
I'll give you it's maybe a really specific example, but just comes to mind because it was fairly recent. And also weirdly, I can't get too specific about it or else a compliance ninja will come out of my curtains. But just like this whole thing about transferring, there's a strategy about moving money out of variable annuities into taxable accounts because of the way long-term capital gains works. And I just never thought of those two things in concert in that way. Right. And that was a random like Facebook group. I'm part of, various financial planner Facebook groups. And that was just like a random thing that came up there. I'm like, oh, that's pretty brilliant, and thinking about that and the timing of it and when you're supposed to do it. And I know that's like super nerdy and in the weeds, but I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then there's a whole other, on a practice management side, just this one's a little good bad in that, you get your eyes open to all sorts of different practice management strategies, like fee models that are out there. The bad part of which is that usually comes up in the context of financial planners yelling at each other about which one's the better fee model. who's ethical and who's not based on their fee model, which is that's a lot of us eating our own young there, which is a problem. But you discover all those concepts, which has been really interesting. Surge meetings, just the concept of surge meetings was not something I had run into until I was listening to the Perfect RIA, I think it was, like, and so it runs the gamut. It's been fascinating.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about your clientele. Obviously, during your disclaimers, you are licensed all over the United States, right? So obviously, with what's happened in the last couple of years, there's probably some pros and cons. But one of the pros might be that your clientele or prospective clientele, it's a lot easier to be able to start working with them all over, because now they're kind of sort of used to doing virtual meetings, right?
Oh, big time. Huge. I've always been semi-virtual because I had clients all over the place. And so local clients I would meet in person, and then far away clients I would, Skype or Zoom or whatever. But absolutely, not worth it, but the thin silver lining of the pandemic has been, people just know how this stuff, works. And, I don't have to, the amount of tech support I've had to do to walk somebody through getting into a video conference has gone way down, and they're used to it too, for either just in general video conferencing with family or whatever, or having service providers meet them this way, right? So they're like, oh yeah, I met with my lawyer last week just this way, right? And so a lot of the groundwork has been laid even professionally for people to have serious, important conversations on Zoom rather than just, frivolous stuff. And so that's been really beneficial.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the makeup of your clientele. Obviously, you do some insurance stuff, you do some fee-based planning stuff and things like that, right? So you are considered a fiduciary, first and foremost, which I thought it was interesting. You're like, we're eating our own young here on who's the better fiduciary, right?
Yep. Oh yeah.
We're both fiduciaries. So, is there a better way necessarily? At the end of the day, isn't it really the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, right?
Yeah, I mean, just on that little sort of side note, and then I'll talk about sort of my clients. What every single model has conflicts of interest, and so it's basically a combination of what conflicts of interest is most comfortable for the client, because different clients will have comfort for different ones, and then which conflicts of interest are better managed by the planner, right? Some people are going to be more conflicted under certain models, and so they, if they're trying to do the right thing, they pick a model that is less conflicting for them. I'm, part of why I like being fee based, not fee only, right? Those are very different things.
Yeah, whoa.
Right. Part of what I like about being fee based and doing kind of everything is that it means that in the moment I don't have to think about which thing pays me and which thing doesn't, and I can just talk and have an open conversation about all the different things, and feel pretty comfortable that at some point, somehow, my time will get compensated and I don't really have to stress about it. So for me, that's a much easier conflict to manage. Then, if you're paid hourly, then you have a conflict in that you are incentivized to take as long as possible, right?
Lawyers.
Right, yeah. If you are project-based, you have a flat fee project, $5,000 to do X thing, you have a incentive to be as short and quick and dirty about it, to hit the minimum level of acceptance necessary to get paid, right?
Yep.
And on and on. There's a billion models and there's a billion conflicts. So yeah, we spend way too much time.
Are you alluding to that it actually revolves around the content of the character of the person?
I mean, weirdly, yeah. It's shocking, I know. It's good people will be good people and bad people will be bad people. And lawyers are fiduciaries, and lawyers have definitely screwed their clients over. Trustees are fiduciaries, and they have definitely screwed their beneficiaries over. There's no magic silver regulatory scheme for this. There's just trying to match good disclosure, right? So people know what's going on, and people matching the conflicts that work best for them. And that's about as good as you can do. The only way you cannot have a conflict of interest, if money generates a conflict of interest, which it does, then the only way you can eliminate conflicts of interest is to get rid of the money. And now your only financial planners are going to be super rich from something else.
Yep.
Right. And that doesn't seem to be a particularly healthy way for the industry. Yeah. So anyway.
No. Hey, by the way, so that's great, and it's interesting because I've said as an advisor to advisors for almost 2 decades now, and when this whole fiduciary thing came out, I'm just like, people are either going to do the right thing or they're not going to do the right thing, right? And it's a what is the old saying that buyer beware, right? I mean, there's got to be some responsibility on the other side of the equation as well. But here's the one thing that I have been saying forever. I don't care what it is. If money is involved, which is, I mean, you're not doing charity work.
Yep.
Right? Taking the vow of poverty takes a lot of money. Right? But you're in sales at the end of the day. You're in sales, right? You're either selling yourself, you're selling your services, you're selling your fiduciary responsibility. But at the end of the day, you're monetizing a relationship somehow. Yep. And inherently, it's impossible to eliminate any type of conflict when you're in sales, right? Because otherwise, why are you doing what you do?
Right. Yeah, it's always there. And it's just, are you doing it in an ethical way, in an open and upfront way, in a way that works for everybody involved? And then you can have a win-win, right? Nobody has to be the loser in the sales has this bad rap. I even feel it, right? You say everyone's in sales, and there's a part of me that flinches, but you are selling yourself and your practice, and why you, not someone else, or why somebody needs to deal with the situation at all.
Yep.
But I got a car, and my car is awesome. And there was not a win. There wasn't a loser in that transaction. I gave the dealership money, and they gave me the car that I love. Like, nobody lost in that, even though there was an obvious incentive for them to, pick as high a number as possible and me to get as low a number as possible. I got a car I like, and I'm not mad at them over it. Obviously, fiduciary responsibility is a little bit different than that, but ultimately, sales doesn't have to be scheming.
Yeah.
Now when you're making a regulatory system for, hundreds of thousands and millions of people that you don't know, right? You have to put some rules into place because you got to give people some ability to take action against bad actors. But I just think, we spend way too much time, planners, that is way too much time arguing about which model is conflict free, and yelling at those who don't, who aren't in the model of the day. So.
Right.
It's just ego, dude, because people go get these designations, and I've said it before, and so I got that from my mentor in the financial services industry back when I was doing it, Jeff, and he said, Tim, he goes, you can go out and get all that alphabet soup behind your name that you want, all the degrees and stuff. But the reality is that the only thing that people care about is their own personal results. And so that's where the focus needs to be. You can get all the designations you want. You can have the alphabet soup. But at the end of the day, your job as a salesperson is to help people solve their problems in the most efficient manner that's best for them and their family. And you're going to, it's almost like, you're a doctor. And now when I say doctor, I'm talking about a doctor root form of the word, which is, if you look up the Latin word, it's teacher. So we're educators. As a financial advisor, you need to educate your clients. Like they can't, I just tell them, like, you see this a lot where they're the husband, right? And this is typical, not always, but typically the husband's running the finances. The wife doesn't want anything to do with it. And then he dies. And now she's forced to figure this stuff out. This is the stuff that always scared me, because I'd run into these gals that got with one of the bad eggs in the bunch, and put all their money literally in one basket. And it was a really dumb basket they put them into. Right. So, and I'm just like, how are these people even, these are the ones that should be looked at. Right. It always seems like the good people are the ones that following everything, doing everything right. And they're the ones that are chastised.
Yeah. Right. I mean, if you're doing bad things, then you've studied how to avoid detection. Right. Because you've studied the rules, you've learned what you need to do to avoid getting detected. So you're less likely, I think, to get caught. And versus somebody it doesn't occur to them that they're trying to, they make an earnest mistake, or they don't, and they're just getting hit with, you know, an audit for whatever reason, but like they're not spending any time covering their tracks because they don't have tracks to cover.
Yeah,
right.
And but then it just becomes a lot easier to find a weird. They're not squeaky clean, so nobody is squeaky clean, right? And so they end up getting brought to the attention of a regulator for something done, or somebody makes a claim because you know, the market drops like it's been this year, and somebody's going to complain somewhere about something, and then you're in a mess.
Yeah. Well, hey, let me ask one more question, because I know that I can see in the eyes that we're moving to the next segment. But I am curious, since you work with clientele all over the United States, you know, is there a like a demographic, you know, age range or whatever, or does it run the full gamut on who you help?
So who I help runs the gamut. The sort of net of people the net of people I'm willing to help is really wide. If I can help somebody, I'm happy to help them. But then there's the sort of the demographic that I target or put energy or marketing towards, right? And that's much more narrow. So my ideal client, if you will, you know, sort of successful professional parents of young kids. You know, and then I have I think we all have like a niche and then maybe sub niches and things, and I've got those too. But if I only could pick one, that's the one. You know, honestly, it's me and my wife, right? You know, which I think is fairly common how that works out. And you know, it's a lot of planning that needs to be done, a lot of education that needs to be done. But ultimately, it's, you know, these are people who are making good money. So the issue is not like affording. The issue is, where should things go, in what order, you know, and let's clarify what the goals are and what we're trying to accomplish. And so I think a lot of the benefit is ultimately not just measured in dollars, but also just the idea that from the chaos and hectic life of being a successful professional parent of young kids, now there's a sense of order and peace to what may happen. And that ultimately, I think, is probably, to speak in business speak for a moment, I think that's probably the core value proposition ultimately for that demographic.
Oh, that's awesome.
Thank you.
That is fantastic. I just want to make sure I got that out there so that any of your, you know, potential listeners, and, you know, you get, you know, prospects, marketing, right? I mean, you can use this and share. I mean, people are going to, you know, want to reach out to you and be like, hey, I think that sounds like, you know, like me, that I think I'd like to work with Michael because he's got a really cool backstory, right? I mean, look, in the grand scheme of things, this is never going to change, right? People like to do business with those that they know, they like, and they trust, right? And you're obviously, you know, you've got all the designations for trust, right? But it comes across, you know, genuinely, right? And people can read that and everything, and that's what I love about your, you know, your vibe, and I love about, you know your backstory and everything. That I think your potential clients who aren't working with you yet, I think that they should definitely, you know, take a look at you, especially if they're in the Northeast.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, good section, guys. We'll take a quick break. When we get back, we'll flip the script on me, and we'll let Michael ask me any question on health. We'll be right back.
You want the absolute best for yourself, and you want it to be easy. That's why we created Green 85. It helps with detoxifying the body gently. We're proud it's chemical-free, unlike almost all other supplements you'll find. Bottom line, Green 85 will get you healthier. We look forward to hearing what Green 85 did for you.
To get this product and our other amazing products, go to chemicalfreebody.com. That's chemicalfreebody.com.
What's up, Enrichers? Tim James here. I'm back with my co-host Carter Wilcoxon, and again today in the house we've got Michael Golosovker.
There you go.
Yay! All right, Michael. This is the point in the show where you get to ask the questions, and I'll do my best to answer them if I can. So, what's your questions on health, my friend?
On health? All right, here's one for you. So, you know, I've got a almost 6-year-old, and there's this thing where I want to make sure that she sort of is healthy and eats right, and has good food eating habits. The problem or the worry that I have is I don't want to give her a complex about it. right? Because in my experience, the more you create a lot of energy around a topic, right? Then you can easily give somebody a complex about it, where they're stressed about what they're eating. And so I guess the question is like, how do you help a little kid eat well without giving them a whole food complex where they're stressed or worried about what they're eating all the time and grow up to, to have to deal with that?
Well, I think the easiest way to do that is to just eat healthy yourself and model it for them. Right? That's kind of like I talk about all the time. Mama bear shows baby bear what to eat, and then baby bear does it. There's obviously instincts in there, but mama and daddy need to show babies how to do it. So you can't expect, if you're eating chicken McNuggets and then allowing your child to get a Happy Meal, then you're going to have problems. You're going to have some serious, because all that stuff is just indoctrinating them into a broken food system. Right. Because obviously, if you look at your body as a system, which it is, and it can be an intelligent system, but it's also an open or dumb system. If we just kind of go along with Western, society, but our food has been so messed around with and denatured, and 85% of the nutrients are farmed out of the soil. So even if you're eating organic, you're still walking around on 15% fuel. Most people aren't even aware of this. We have all the chemical pollution, right? With the umbilical cord studies, you can look this up. I know right now your child is full of chemicals on a cellular level.
Right.
Like there's over 180 cancer-causing chemicals in you, your wife, your child right now, easy. And all the blood tests prove that, right? You can get your own blood test to prove it. So what are we doing to get that stuff out of there? But as far as kids go, the parents that are struggling with their kids are the ones that are feeding them hot dogs and white buns, chicken McNuggets, and mac and cheese. And you go to a restaurant, and unfortunately, that's all they have to offer. Like kids menu, it's like garbage. It's fries. It's all this stuff. So we're worried about supply. Everybody, well, not everybody, but most people we're starting to worry about supply chain delays, especially for food and stuff like that. But most of the supply chain delays this is stuff coming from China and weird stuff like that. It's like, who cares if you can't get like a toaster oven or a microwave, or so what if there's food chain delays and you can't get Doritos and Cheetos? Who cares? Like, what the hell is that stuff doing for you anyway? It's just all this. Who cares if it's on? This is the reason why people are getting sick. Now, if you guys go back and look at there's a documentary called Forks Over Knives, and in that documentary, they were actually talking, because that is it shows people like what a plant-based diet can do for the human body as far as regeneration and healing. And during wartime, I can't remember exactly which war it was, but the soldiers came in and they took all the goats and the cows, and they pretty much took all the animals away from the farmers. So people were left like eating root vegetables, mung beans. That was it. What was really interesting is heart disease, cancer, diabetes, all that stuff. After that got removed, it all dropped like a rock. And then after the war was over, all the animals came back into the diet, and then all the cancer and the heart disease and everything shot up. Now, I'm not saying to everybody listening out there that you have to eat plant-based 100%. Might be a good idea to try it for a month or two and see how it goes for you. But, the blue zones where people live the longest, they eat very small amounts of animal products. It's mostly vegetation, and it's mostly fresh, and the animal products they're getting are also super fresh. So that's kind of the key, man. If you want to share with your children what to do, is like eating lower on the food chain. It's very inexpensive, and making sure that you have really fresh, clean food. That's the deal. So buy local, locals, farmers markets, sprouting, wheatgrass, sunflower sprouts, pea sprouts, buckwheat lettuce. You've got alfalfa sprouts, red clover sprouts, mung beans, lentils. All of these things can be sprouted, and they become hundreds of times more nutritious, and on average about 8 times more digestible. Oh. So I think it's really fun with your children. You can actually get them involved in growing the food at home, especially with sprouts, from the very beginning, and they can watch this little seed grow into this plant and then turn into a salad that they eat, and they're going to have a blast with it. And it's going to be something that you can share with your children. You're actually reconnecting them to the mothership, which is Mother Nature, right? And you guys can participate in that together and have fun. And you could do microgreens. You could actually have a garden. You can do indoor tower gardens. You can do all kinds of sprouting and stuff. and just get them into fresh, clean foods. And if the food's fresh, it's going to taste better. Right. But the other thing is like, if you make it into a stressful thing and you make it all worry and all that stuff, kids are going to pick up on that frequency. So don't make it into a big deal. Just eat fresh, healthy foods and roll your sleeves up a little bit, get in the kitchen and have fun with it. And I think that's the best way to show your kids.
Awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So the question is are you gonna do some sprouts or?
Well, we're actually working on we're on step 14 of 200 million of building a house, and then once we've got it, and then we'll have a yard to do that. But
you can actually sprout in the house on your countertop with no dirt. Like if you went and bought some red lentils or French lentils or green lentils or mung beans, you could soak them tonight, rinse them off in the morning, and you rinse them off morning and night for 2 days, and the tails pop out, and you can throw them in salads. You can have living foods into your diet in 2 days, 2.5 days.
Wow.
Like literally, you could even go down and buy it in the bulk section, get some lentils, soak them in water once. There's a episode, I think it's, I can't remember. I think it might be 48 on my show where I did how you can increase your nutrition up to 800% through sprouting. And I kind of walk people through about 95% of what you need to know to sprout.
Wow, that's really awesome. Did not know that.
Yeah, and then you don't have to worry about supply chain delays and stuff. You can literally eat the most nutritious foods that are activated. These are living foods for pennies. Like it's like the lower you eat on the food chain, and if your food is activated or sprouted and alive, man, it's like food is medicine, right? This is a high level of medicine you're pumping into you and your child's body. And it's fun, and you can get them participating in the growing of it. And you don't want to make it into this big deal like, oh, I got to go out and I got to do raised beds and build a watering system. It's like, no, you can go down to a frickin' restaurant and they're throwing away gallon glass jars. Say, hey, can I have one of them jars? And they'll give you one for free. Then you take it home, scrape the sticker off or not. And then 3/4 of a cup of, let's say, alfalfa seeds or red clover seeds will fill that whole thing up with sprouts with no dirt. You just do it in water. And use that, or you could put lentils and mung beans in it and fill it up. It's really quite simple. People make it into more than it is, but as you get into the habit of it, and when you're ordering seeds, one of my rules of thumb is every time you reorder seeds, order a new seed and try sprouting something new. And that way, you're just slowly adding a new. Before too long, you'll have this whole plethora of you just like me right now. I can run in. I'm like, oh, cut some sunflower, buckwheat, lentils, mung beans, mix the fenugreeks in there, and then maybe I chop up a couple vegetables to go with it. And I've got a salad that's alive.
Nice.
I'm like a wildebeest going across the Serengeti, putting on, tons of muscle, right? Eating that fresh tender. So anyway, hopefully that answers your question on how to get kids involved and not have them have anxiety. And these foods, medicine foods, will actually help kids with depression and anxiety themselves. They are medicine for them. So it's kind of a double thing. Any other questions?
You sort of somewhat accidentally answered the other question I was going to ask you, which was about sort of like, if you were going to make some changes, how do you do it in? So I run into this a lot where you have to change something in a big or radical way, right? And that usually is really, really hard to kind of just jump to the top of a cliff. So I was going to ask you, like, what are the sort of the little steps that you start here and then build on and build on and build on, and then you wake up 6 months later and suddenly you've radically changed things? And you pretty much just answered that. So
yeah, you're right. It's baby steps. And in a practical standpoint, we usually get people focusing on the major inputs. You have 20,000 breaths a day. So in air, oxygen is your number one nutrient. So the first thing is how clean is the air in your home or where you're breathing in your office? Do you know? Most people don't. If you've painted your room, this is the one thing that's pretty sad is like you get it. Okay, I got a baby on the way. Oh, it's going to be a boy. And you go to the ultrasound. Then what do? The room gets painted blue. And for the next 4.5 years, as that paint's curing, it's off-gassing these toxic chemicals into your child and you. But you can't see it, right? So this is the problem. Or if you have carpet in the home, carpet that's not natural fiber, which most of it isn't, is made from crude oil, and it takes over 3,000 chemicals to make that. And that carpet's off-gassing formaldehyde. So you're actually embalming yourself and your child every breath that you take. So when you get this awareness, then you have to like, okay, what can I do? Well, on the cheap, you start cracking your frickin' windows, especially at night to get fresh air. And because homes are literally 100 times more toxic than downtown LA on a smoggy day where there's a smog warning. That's how polluted it is. There's what else besides the carpets and the paint off gassing? You have glues and particle board, especially in the summer, that heat up. These things are all off gassing. Even like laminate floors. There's a researcher from MIT that showed that the off gassing from them is directly linked to Alzheimer's, or not Alzheimer's, excuse me, but autism in children. And the babies are crawling around on that, and they're getting it. It's these things are off gassing into the child. So, but you can't see it. But when you do the blood test, it shows up in the blood test, and it's actually pretty bad. I mean, we have children being born with cancer today. That's how much we're de-evolving and how much pollution we have that you can't see. So I think it's really important that people get that awareness. They got to get their air right, start cracking your windows. And if when you take it to the next level, then you get an air purification system, at least in the bedroom when you're sleeping. And if you have, like I just got this Whoop band, and it takes 4 days to gather data before it'll start working. But you can actually start with Aura Rings or Whoop. There's these different companies now that you can actually hack your sleep and your performance and your recovery, and it tells you what's going on. So it's like, oh, I woke up 17 times last night. Oh, I only got 18 minutes of REM sleep. That's a problem, right? So with the metrics now, the things don't lie, and now you can start hacking it. Like okay, here's how my sleep is. Now I'm going to crack the window. It's like, wow, my sleep improved. Okay, now I'm sleeping at 70 degrees, and then you go down to 68, it gets better, and 66, it's better, and then 62, it's better, then 60, it got worse. Oh, 62. Now you know your optimal temperature for you to sleep. Then you can start working on like weighted blankets and different light blankets and see which one makes you feel better. Your bed can be changed out. You could put essential oils into the room at night while you're sleeping, making sure you're rotating those, not doing the same one every night, at least 4 of them and rotating them. See how that does. Making sure that the room's really dark, right? So it's completely black. Getting off your blue screens and your laptops an hour before you go to bed and see if that affects it. So now you can slowly start changing things, and you can start seeing things happening, right? So to baby step people, again, back to it, I just want to talk about the air thing really quick, is we look at air. And we look at water, because without water, you're dead in 11 days. And then we look at sleep, because without sleep, you're dead in about 11 days. And then food, you can live about 2 months without food. So those are the first 4 things we look at. And then, of course, we have products and stuff we put people on that, takes less than 5 minutes a day to radically start cleaning up the body, doing the daily detox, cleaning up the gut and the blood and the cells and the fat and the muscle tissue every day, because the pollution's always coming in. Right. So we want to create a system for them and a lifestyle that you have daily detox happening, because we're daily retoxing just from the polluted world we live in. Just the way it is. So we want daily detox, and we want daily regeneration. We want our cells to regenerate at a good speed, so that there's more cells growing than are dying off that day. And if you can do that, when you reach that tipping scale, then you don't age like everybody else, and you have abundant energy, and you're happy and healthy, and your brain is working better, and you have more mental clarity, and you're a more productive, happy individual. And that's what we want for folks.
Wow. Awesome. Thank you. so
yeah, you're welcome, my friend.
Yeah, Tim, if you don't mind, and then again, in Richards, we really do appreciate you joining us for another episode. If you don't mind, we talked a little bit about this, maybe it's a couple episodes ago, I can't remember, but you were talking a little bit about how you were able to gauge someone's like health, how it increased their overall, speaking of abundance, like I'm going off of memory here, like 21% better because of the priority that they made with their own health increased their revenue by 20%.
I know what you're talking about. I know. So
talking about, but I thought that was interesting, and I wanted to touch on it just a little bit, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I actually recorded a guy earlier, and he said that he had a gal that was a real estate agent, and when he helped her help herself, she lost over 40 pounds, her energy skyrocketed, and she actually doubled her income, right? So what I've noticed is that people that are in sales, commission-based stuff like that, I actually went back through my clients because it's really interesting, because I had a guy, Izzy, who used to work with me. He was one of my employees, and then he became a salesperson at a car dealership. And he said he'd never made more than $8,000. And I said, well, let's make a fun goal to make 10, at the end of 6 months. But he called me for health coaching. So I just brought it up. I never spoke about money again because I used to do business coaching. And his second, like 2.5 months later, he hit 10,300. And so I went back to all these people that were on commission sales, right? And we figured it out. We averaged it out. The average person, when they worked on improved their health, they increased their income by 21% in 6 months, which is pretty profound.
Yeah.
Very profound. So why is that? Because if your body, which is the vehicle that's making those sales and getting you through the day and making the phone calls, you're the one that's interfacing with the clients. And who do you want to do business with? Hey, Tim, how's it going? Or, hey, Carter, how's it going? Oh, it's going pretty good. How are you? Well, we're here for our financial advisor appointment. Well, okay. Well, hold on a second. Yeah, have a seat. Or do you want to, hey, Carter, hey, we're here for our financial advisor. Hey, guys, way to go. I'm glad you're here. I can have a seat, So your energy and your frequency is going to determine who wants to do business with you, because if they're shopping and it's between you and some other person and that you're vibing at a higher frequency, you're going to get the deal. They're going to come work with you because there's just going to be something about him, something about her. And it's because you've actually cleaned up your body and you're literally vibrating, like literally at a higher level than the other people. Plus it gives you more energy to make the extra calls and maybe you have extra energy. So now you're reading an industry, something in your industry. You're educating yourself every half an hour every day to stay on top and be on the cutting edge of everything that's going on, because whether somebody's tired, it's like, I put that off. Right. So you kind of have a super edge over everybody in your competition. And you have a higher quality of life while you're doing it. So yeah, you're going to make more money and you're going to just have everything in your life is going to get better when you take care of your body.
Yeah. Can I just add something to that real quick, which is,
yes.
Just, I remember I've historically been terrible with sleep. And at the beginning of the year, as part of my annual planning, like one of my biggest things was sleep, right? And figuring that out. And ever since I did that, I haven't done a metric on it in quite that way, but ever since I've been sleeping better, yeah, all of that is true. Like I've been doing better. Everything about everything has been better, and that's just like one subset of health. So
yeah, absolutely. Or if your 3-year-old has a meltdown and you've got a cold, you're probably going to respond better to it if you're healthy than if you had a cold. You might be a little cranky.
Right. So
you got a cranky kid and you're not feeling good, you might get extra cranky.
Yeah. So
yeah,
cool.
For sure.
Well, Michael, thanks for coming on the show today, bro. Appreciate you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's great. Really enjoyed it.
Yeah, absolutely. And by the way, I appreciate us being able to take care of that disclaimer thing, but with a little bit of, I don't know, fun with it. We had a little bit of fun with this. So that was.
I was surprised. I'm like, wow, it's still going. Still going. It's still going. Oh, he's got more. Oh, wow. And there's a PS at the end. Great.
Yep. That was funny.
You just reminded me of, no offense to all the advisors out there, but this is, my highest excitement changed with the health, and I just don't miss the regulatory stuff at all. So it's let you guys deal with that.
Yeah, that's our headache now.
Yeah. Well, Michael, thank you again. Both Tim and I really appreciate you coming on and everything. So, hey, and Richards, thank you so much for joining us for another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. And to be able to see all of our previous guests, just like Michael, you can go to our website at www.thehealthandwealthpodcastshow.com and make sure to like, share, and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Google. So for my fantastic co-host, Mr. Chemical Free Body himself, Tim James, I am Carter Wilcoxon, CEO and founder of CSI Financial Group. Thanking you all very much for joining us again. And Michael, seriously, it was a great pleasure having you on. Thank you for being on here with us today. And we look forward to being able to learn a little bit more about you, maybe along the way. Keep us updated on how things are going with you and your health. Any updates? We really do appreciate the time and your willingness to share with us today. It's late on the East Coast, coming up on 7:15 tonight. So thank you again for being on with us.
My pleasure. Thank you so much. Had a blast. Happy to do it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Until next time, Richards, have a great rest of your day, and we will see you next on the Health and Wealth Podcast Show. Thank you, everybody. Hey, Enrichers, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Health and Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Carter Wilcoxon.
And I'm your host, Tim James. And by God, we are committed to helping you guys have fat wallets, flat bellies. So tune in again for another episode and make sure to like, share, and drink a lot of water.
Or beer.
You have just listened to the Health and Wealth Podcast with Carter and Tim.